You're listening to The Sports Stove with host Vince Stover.
The Sports Stove is sponsored by RA Marketing. Go radigital.com. Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. We have a phone call from Kelby Tomlinson, infielder with the Colorado Rockies. Enjoy. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. All right, welcome into the Sports Stove podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Colorado Rockies infielder Kelby Tomlinson. And Kelby, thank you for spending some time with us today on the Sports Stove.
Hey, thanks for having me, Vince.
Let's start off with talking about this season. Right now, everything's kind of up in the air, it seems like, and they're talking about maybe trying to get the season going pretty soon. What have you heard, or what do you know right now as far as when you guys will get back to playing baseball?
Man, I haven't really heard anything more than what's out there available to the public. I haven't been told any new news. We're hoping, sometime in May we can get going. But so that's kind of what I'm preparing for. I'm treating it right now as kind of like the off season's still going, and we're a little extended off season, but still continuing kind of my off season regimen. And then hopefully we'll get a little bit of a spring training and then get going pretty soon. But as far as information goes, I haven't been told anything more than what's been made available to the public.
So does that mean that right now you're basically doing what everybody else is doing, going in the backyard and doing whatever you can?
We have a little bit more liberty. We are, Kansas is where I'm at right now, and we are in shelter in place, but all outdoor activities are exempt as long as you stay in groups of less than 10 people. So we got about 5 of us right now that we're going up and doing baseball practice outside. Today was a little cold, so I just hid in my garage. But, I've been getting out and going and doing pretty much, maybe not a full practice, but, kind of individual practice, ground balls, getting to do my batting practice, playing catch, running, throwing, all that, just kind of in small groups rather than a team practice. But, so I feel I'm a little bit more ahead of the curve than maybe some of the other people that are in bigger cities are able to do.
Sure, great. Now, Kelby was drafted in 2011 by San Francisco, currently in the Colorado Rockies organization. You're just signed with Colorado this year. How important is spring training? I think of sports like maybe basketball and even football where chemistry is so crucial, and these training camps or things like that are so important, even in working on making the roster. How important is that, or how does this affect your chances to start the season up in Colorado?
Oh, man. Spring training is definitely a good time to kind of get to know people at a more personal level. Being in the same division when I was with the Giants as Colorado, I've got to play against them a lot, so I've got to know a lot of the players pretty well, but don't get to know. You just know their names and see them around, but getting to actually know who they are as a person is you can build bonds, and spring training is kind of like your first chance to get to do that. So hopefully we'll still get a chance out and get some spring training. As far as making the roster goes, I think I was pretty sure slated to start the season in the minor leagues. But hopefully with this and the short season and having to play more double headers and possibly be in Arizona, that they're considering opening up more roster spots, which I think that gives me a little bit better of a chance. But honestly, I don't know where I stand and all of that either. So hoping it opens up a little more opportunities, but I don't know.
Sure. When you signed with Colorado, I was looking through the roster and things like that. You're playing, middle infielder, I guess third base as well in San Francisco. But one of the things that in the article I read said that Colorado is a good fit for you because their prospect, Brendan Rodgers, had shoulder surgery, and it might give more opportunity because of that. Plan was probably to start in the minor leagues this season. What I know in San Francisco, you've got multiple positions that you played at and things like that. Do you see as your best opportunity outside of just injury from other people and things like that? What is your best shot with getting back up to the majors in Colorado?
I think the thing I can bring is the versatility and experience. They have some really good some players. Arenado at third and Story at short, both all-stars, and then some really good, talented young players that can play second base, which are the three players I play. You mentioned Rogers, and then there's Hampson and a few other players that they have that are able to play that position and are really good. So, I think where I best fit in is, the ability to back up those positions with experience and, not, going to be shocked at what's happening or the situations. I kind of feel like I've, was coming into my 10th season playing of professional baseball, so I can kind of bring that to the table. And not only that, but I've played in, a lot of games up at the major league level that I can bring to the table, and just the flexibility to start the game at shortstop, and then if things happen and need to be changed around, I can move over to second or move to third, and I've got a few innings logged in the outfield, so even in an emergency pinch, I can move out there.
When you were in San Francisco, so you made your major league debut in 2015, and in your first game, your first at-bat, I guess, your first 3 at-bats, you hit safely. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And you were the first Giant to hit safely in his first 3 at-bats since 2006 when you did it in 2015. You seemed, I could be wrong, but I think that you had a fair amount of pinch hitting and stuff like that, especially in your rookie season. How hard is that to just come in and pinch hit for an at-bat? What's the mindset going into that, and how much, obviously it's got to be harder than coming in already having a full game in of at-bats?
Yeah, it's definitely more tough. I kind of think you just kind of got to have, a warrior kind of mentality, or just you're going to go in there and battle and give it your best at bat. The odds and the expectations of success are definitely lower. So you just got to go in there, be ready to grind and try to do your best, especially if you come in a situation where a job needs to be done, a runner needs to be moved over, a runner needs to be knocked in. Try to get that job accomplished, even if maybe you don't get a base hit or get on base, but if you could help the team, get a better chance to win the game, that's your ultimate goal. And so, you just got to try to do your best prep work in the cages before you can get in there, but it's a little more difficult of a task.
I want to talk to you a little bit about some of your successes in the league. Your first major league home run was a grand slam against the Cubs, which makes me happy. I'm a Brewer fan, and so anytime the Cubs do bad, I'm all for it. But grand slam, what was that like? I can't imagine. First home run.
Yeah, it was kind of surreal. I remember that bat strikes on me, so I was just kind of battling, trying to stay alive with the bases loaded, and I think we were ahead, and so really just I was trying to hit a fly ball and stay out of a double play in that situation to get the run in, and he threw me the left-hander threw me a breaking ball, which is kind of the one pitch that I can hit pole side in the air better than maybe some other pitches. So I kind of just lined up, and once I hit it, I initially it was just all right, we're gonna at least get one run in, and then as I kept carrying, it kind of became surreal at that moment.
The day after your grand slam, you followed up by a walk-off single to beat the Cardinals. So that's a pretty good 2-day stretch right there.
Yeah, that was a fun, crazy 2 days. I remember going to sleep that next night and just in a whirlwind after the last 2 days that have happened. So it was definitely maybe the best 2-day stretch in baseball I've ever had, and it was something I'll always remember.
You're a career 265 hitter. You've got 77 runs, 47 RBIs, 19 stolen bases. When it comes to the offensive side of baseball, What excites you the most, or what do you think is the thing that you see as something you do really well and that you look forward to continuing to improve at?
I think my skill is I'm not much of a home run hitter, but I feel like my skill of giving the team a quality at bat, fighting off pitches, swinging at good pitches, laying off pitches that the pitcher thinks were a really good pitch, but you laid off to maybe get yourself a better pitch later in the bat, or like I was saying earlier, to kind of play to the situation, and if there's a guy at third, and get him in, or if it's late in the game and you need to get a base runner over into scoring position to be able to accomplish that, or even come through with a big hit right there to score him from second, late in a close game. But just to go in the batter's box and put up together a quality at bat in a crucial situation is what I always look forward to each season, and kind of enjoy those.
When you were coming out of college, coming into the draft in 2011, what was your hope or your ideal circumstance to go into? Meaning, was it looking at depth chart, the team you go to, or was it just, hey, as long as I get drafted, I'm good?
Yeah, I definitely, just an opportunity to get to go play. So if you get drafted, I'm good. But as far as depth charts go and all that, you're in baseball, as opposed to more basketball and football, you got a long road ahead of you. I think I was drafted in 2011, and it took me 4 years, so 2015. So you look at the depth chart, from 2011 to 2015 when I finally made it. There's a lot of turnover. A little less with the Giants than maybe some other clubs, but in general, there's a lot of turnover from the time you're drafted to the time you get up. So kind of looking at the depth charts, doesn't really give you a big sense, but I do remember after I was getting drafted, kind of looking at where all their minor league teams were and what cities and what their team names were, and thinking about what it'd be like to go and play there. I kind of remember that a lot about the draft, but just really hoping to get drafted by a team and get an opportunity to go and play was a dream come true.
You've spent your entire, the teams and who you've been associated with have all been out west. Has that always been on purpose, or has that just been what the opportunities were at the time?
Drafted with the Giants, that I had no say in that really, and loved my time there. Spent 7 years, a little over 7 years with the organization, and then the first time I got a pick was after I got taken off the roster with them, and just always really loved being in Arizona, and Arizona had interest in me, so that was where I went after that. And that just happened to be out west, but that was kind of where things just kind of lined up. They had interest and we had interest, and it kind of became a fit. Then I ended up getting released by them. Things didn't go out as we all hoped, but and I was at home for about 3 weeks, and I think we called every team, and no team had openings. We called every team again, and no teams had openings again. And then eventually Seattle had some injuries in the AAA team, and they needed a player, so it was like my first opportunity to get back out and get playing. So I jumped on that, and had that one been anywhere else, I would have jumped on it, whether it was east or west. So that kind of just worked out. And then this off season, I got kind of a little bit of a choice again, and Colorado was at the top of where I wanted to go, and the moment they showed any interest, so we were just ready to get something done to get me to be able to play with them. So we're excited to be with them and be there.
Have you ever had a moment where in the locker room you were starstruck?
I think maybe the first time the Giants, I was in the Giants in the minor leagues, and probably when I was, I guess it would have been in middle school, 11, 12, 13, Dontrell Willis, he was the pitcher for the Marlins.
Yeah.
But he had like a remarkable year. I think they won the World Series, so that would have been, maybe they didn't win the World Series, but either way, he had like just a crazy, like a 2-year. He didn't have a full long career of a lot of success, but he had a good 2-year run, and that was right at the stretch when I was in the minor leagues, and they had Miguel Cabrera and Hanley Ramirez at that time also, so they were a really good team. But I just remember him from like when I was a kid, and then he ended up at the end of his career was in a minor league camp with the Giants, and I got to face him, and it was kind of like, wow, that was like, a guy that I looked up to when I was in middle school. Was somebody that I was competing against. So I think that was kind of like the first time that I really thought that. And then maybe one other time was getting to face, Barry Zito. That was at kind of the same time when I was in middle school was his kind of prime. And so I got to face him my first year up, his last year out. So that was pretty cool too.
When it comes to people that have helped you the most in the majors, would you say that players are more helpful or managers are more helpful as far as to continue to help you to develop or see weaknesses and can give you some training or extra help with it or advice, whatever it may be? Is there a player or a manager that's helped you, you'd say, the most since you've been in the majors?
Yeah, with my kind of a mix of both. Our infield coach, Ron Wotus, one of the best in the game, I think, and he really, really helped me defensively. I think from when I first came in until who I am now, I've grown a lot on the defensive side with a lot of his effort and work that he's invested in me. And then having Brandon Crawford around has also been really good too to be able to talk with, and then just to watch how he works and stuff has been helpful. And then guys like Buster Posey, just the professionalism that they carry themselves with, that has kind of changed and helped me grow as a person in just how I handle things in life. Him and Hunter Pence, I think, were really big role models in my life as to kind of how is a good way to carry yourself just on and off the field that I've looked up to, that I feel that they've helped me. So, kind of a mix of coaches and players have continued to help me to grow.
As a fan, we always look in and kind of wonder, especially when you have older veterans, and you wonder how much they're willing to help, as opposed to saying, hey, this person's trying to take my job, so I'm not going to do anything to help them. Have you ever had a player that's been kind of like that, standoffish, hey, good luck, but hope you don't have good luck?
No, definitely not. I first in, it was probably my first couple of days, Hunter Pence, who is, a highly touted career, 10-year plus career, All-Stars, World Series. He came up to me and was like, hey, you're here for a reason. They believe in you. You're here to help us win games. We're all going to go out there. You're no different than anybody else in this locker room. So we need you just as much as we need everybody else. So, come in and play your best, and don't have any lack of confidence, because somebody believes that you deserve to be here and you deserve to be here. So don't ever feel as if you don't. We're all here for you. And the Giants, have did a really good job of creating a culture like that, which is also, I believe, in part that led to a lot of their success, that, they went in the World Series in 10, 12, 14, and we reached the playoffs again in 16. It was just a group of guys that, believed in each other and helping each other, and no matter who was in there, we were all part of one family, and we were going to try to help each other.
Who's responsible for creating a culture in a baseball locker room?
I think the players. The managers, I've always felt like can help, but more so they can mess it up more than they can help. The players have to be the ones to create it and hold each other accountable, and the managers play into that. But I guess more so, I feel like managers can mess up chemistry more than they can build chemistry. So just kind of helping the players along and being there and being a help more than a hindrance is good. And Bochy was always great about that, and making sure that we were doing a good job of having a good chemistry, and then at the same time not being so much of a Debbie Downer and bringing everybody down at the same time. So, it's a tough line for them, but, it's ultimately the players that are responsible for what happens in the locker room and keeping everybody accountable, and then picking each other up and caring for each other is them, no matter how much a manager wants it and wishes it and tries his best to create it. If the players aren't there receiving it, it doesn't matter.
When it comes to your manager staff, how much influence does the manager have compared to the position coaches, and as far as how much time does he spend with each player working on in practice and things like that?
Yeah, so the manager, he, as far as practice goes, he kind of runs the whole schedule and stuff, but as far as individual work, not too much. He can maybe say something or see something, but for the most part, you have, an infield coach who's specifically there to work on infield stuff, and then a hitting coach to specifically work on hitting stuff. And, the manager's aspect is, like we were just talking about, trying to, control the culture of the team and the attitude of the team, and then also handle the managing of the strategic decisions during the game and how we're going to approach, practices and what all we're going to do in practices. So they kind of each have a hand in it, but a different hand in a different way.
Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. We'll get right back to our interview with Kelby Tomlinson. But first, I do want to point out that our sponsor, RA Marketing, is here to help you. RA Marketing offers turnkey digital marketing services for financial advisors. They've worked tirelessly to create a winning Facebook ads formula that delivers the ROI advisors need. If you're a financial advisor, you need to reach out to RA Marketing to help you. You can find them online at goradigital.com. Now back to the interview with Kelby Tomlinson. Do you have like a favorite ballpark? Is there a ballpark you've played in that you say, this is, if I could play there every game, I would. I love that place.
I really enjoyed our place in San Francisco, especially my first few years whenever we were selling out every day. We had like a 500 game sellout streak, so whenever it was packed, it's just a beautiful ballpark. Great fans who were really into the game, and I always enjoyed it there. Probably my next favorite, another favorite was at St. Louis. It's another place that's a big baseball community where the fans are really into baseball. They're not just showing up for social hour; they're showing up to watch, and they want their team to win, and they're into the game, and they fill up the stadium. So, and it's a newer stadium, a nice stadium as well, and just a really cool area. So I enjoyed that place as well.
How different is it playing AAA compared to the majors when it comes to the crowd and the atmosphere of the game?
Good question. I would say, there is definitely a difference as far as the atmosphere and just the crowds. You could get some really good crowds in AAA where, you're at 10, 11,000, and then some, kind of Tuesday midday or Wednesday midday games in the major leagues where you're looking at like 15,000, and there's not much of a difference, especially when you factor in when there's not a lot of fans, but there's a lot of seats, so it feels really empty, on those days, whereas in the minor leagues, your people are standing on the berms in the outfield and stuff, and the whole seats are packed. It can feel packed and kind of create a similar environment. But once you get a full major league stadium and everybody there watching, there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, I've not been to a lot of major league games. I grew up in Nashville, so we'd go to AAA games a lot in Nashville on Saturday nights, and always have good crowds there. And then the last major league game I went to, I took my oldest son to Cincinnati for an September game, and it was about 4 years ago, and it was Reds and the Brewers, and neither one of them were in the playoffs, and there was probably 1,000 people there. There wasn't very many people, and I thought, well, AAA's not that bad.
Yeah. Sometimes they can be pretty pretty similar, but you compare the same Friday night on the same Friday night.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a difference, but a Friday night in AAA can sometimes feel like a Tuesday game, and like you said, in September when no teams are in the playoffs, and that type of situation.
Yeah. What's the craziest encounter you've had during a game? So maybe someone on base that you had a conversation with, or just some kind of different encounter that happened during a game.
I remember we were playing in New York at the Mets, and I just got called up, and there's some guys injured, and then some guys that were about to be coming back off the injury. So I kind of knew I was kind of had a short window when I was going to be up, and then likely be sent back down. And I didn't played any out. I played outfield the year prior, but I hadn't played any outfield in spring training or any of that season. So it had been over a year since I played in the outfield. And there was some crazy game, and switches had to be made, and there was just a lot of stuff. And I get thrown out in the outfield. So I'm out in New York. I haven't played outfield in over a year, and just got called back up, and there's this fan out there yelling at me, and he's like, "You got a one-way ticket back to AAA," and was just yelling all sorts of things, and so I think I won't forget that moment.
Those fans, it's funny. Again, growing up in Nashville, the guys that came through the Sounds were the Reds affiliate for a while. And then they were the White Sox, and then the Brewers, and different people. But some fans would just be brutal back there. These guys talking about, you're nothing. You had guys whose dads played in the majors, and they come up, and and then it's just the things they say to them about their dads and about who they are. It's pretty brutal. And I know New York has a good reputation of being very friendly to the opposing teams that are out there.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your best baseball memory?
I think I got two. Definitely my first hit. And then, obviously didn't know it, but my wife, if anybody's seen the video and all that, it was a really cool moment to watch it afterwards and see her reactions and just all of that. That was, just a crazy day and just a fun time. And then, like we were just talking about earlier, that 2-day stretch where I hit my first home run, the grand slam, and then the next day I had my first walk-off hit, and that 2-day stretch was kind of a really fun 2 days that we had as well. So I would say those two moments, I guess, would be my top two baseball moments, and then playing in the playoffs at Wrigley would be up there as well. You
played college ball, community college. Was that in Kansas?
Yes.
Okay, and then you got, is it 1 year at Texas Tech?
Yes, 1 year.
Okay, and did you play shortstop all through college?
Yeah, my first year I came in, I was unrecruited, really. Coming out of high school, I accidentally got saw by this junior college that was recruiting another player, and got to go there. So when I first got there, I played a little bit of kind of the same thing. They had a sophomore shortstop when I was a freshman, and so I kind of played a little bit of third, a little bit of short, a little bit of, I don't know if I played much second that year. And then my sophomore year, I was the older guy there. I played every game at short, and then at Texas Tech, I played every game at shortstop. So for most of my career, I played every single game at shortstop.
Have you ever had the chance to play against one of your college teammates in the minors or in the majors?
Yes, I have played. There was my pitcher. He was actually my roommate at Texas Tech. We got to play against each other. He was with Oakland. I was with San Francisco. But I'm trying to think if I ever got an at-bat off of him or not. But he got to pitch in the game that I was in, and then I got to play, and he was down in the bullpen. So we kind of got to see each other. I think that was honestly really the only time. I think there was maybe one other time I got to play with a teammate against a teammate in the lower level of the minor leagues. Another pitcher that we had, but I think that was really the only couple times that I played against teammates. There's actually been a couple teammates that I had on a high school summer league team that I've got to play against in the minor leagues and in the major leagues. So that's been kind of cool that we were teammates on a high school summer league team, and then, almost 10 years later, actually 10 years later, we played against each other again. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned with the community college, they kind of found you on accident. It seems like baseball is such a opportunity sport, as meaning that you have very limited opportunities. We had a friend back in the 90s. He played AAA ball in New Orleans, and when he was finally getting his opportunity, he got injured, and he never really had the chance again after that. And is there any moments outside of the community college seeing you? Was there anything else that you'd say, boy, that was a very fortunate opportunity that had I missed that, maybe things would have gone differently, or had that not happened, then things could have turned out much differently?
Yeah, for sure. I guess, definitely getting to go to my junior college was probably my biggest one, because I didn't really have any other options other than that. Getting drafted out of Texas Tech, getting to play my junior year and getting to do pretty well there. I had an injury or something during that time. Maybe I don't get drafted or something similar. Maybe I get to come back and never get a chance to play. So just being able to stay healthy my junior year was also something, and then being able to play well was a pretty big opportunity as well. And then finally getting the opportunity, I think when I got called up was for an injured other player. So looking at that, had they never had any injuries or anything like that, maybe I spend the whole year in the minor leagues that year and never get a chance again. So there's definitely been quite a few breaks that I'm fortunate to have.
When it comes to talk and things like that amongst players, you had when you were in San Francisco, of course, it came in after the Barry Bonds stuff. And then this season, coming into the season, all the talk was about the Astros sign stealing scandal and stuff like that. And was there a lot of talk about that coming in originally at spring training, or was that kind of a moot point at that point?
I feel like coming into spring training, it was out there. But I think once it got into spring training was when a lot more information became available of what all was going on with the Astros. So, I think there was definite talk, not necessarily like as a team, but you might be sitting down eating and they might be on the TV and somebody might say something about it or kind of ask what your thoughts are on it. And, so there was maybe some small talk here and there. I don't necessarily feel that there was, as a group, a lot of talk on that.
I assume as a fan looking from the outside in, I assume that everybody steals signs. It seems like the issue may have been more of how they were doing it and things like that. Do you have an opinion that you're willing to share with us on the situation and how disappointing or how big of a deal or little of a deal it is to you?
Yeah, my whole stance on it is kind of I didn't know if there was specifically a rule about it, because if there was no rule about it, then there's absolutely nothing you can do to say. You can't just give somebody any discipline or shame for something that I guess is quote unquote an unwritten rule, because it's at that point it's still fair game. So really, I wasn't for sure of what the rule was on it or all of that. And then upon learning that there was a rule stating that you can't use live video feed, then that opens up. You broke a rule that's written right there, and you clearly broke it, so you're clearly subject to discipline or whatever, and all that is in the hands of the commissioner. And I don't really have any thoughts as to whether he made the appropriate amount. That's all his decision. I don't know all the information that he had, what all weighed into any of the decisions that he made. That's above me, and I don't have all the information that he would have had available to him, so I can't say one way or another my opinion on that. But I can just kind of say that they were, based on what the rule was and what, as far as I know, what they did, then they're subject to being disciplined or whatever they got, and that's what they were given. So I don't really know much more than that, I guess.
Okay. Now, baseball is oftentimes criticized by two things. Once by failing to really reach a younger generation. They have kind of that get off my lawn mentality, a lot of times what they're accused of. And then the second thing is the unwritten rules of baseball. The batter looks at the pitcher wrong, or they walk over someplace they're not supposed to, or things like that. So let's start with this. What are some things that you've seen in the majors and in the minors too that are helping baseball go forward as in the attempt of reaching a younger generation and continuing to keep baseball an important pastime in America?
Yeah, I think it's always, at least as much as I have observed, it's been a big there's been a lot of efforts to really appeal and reach the younger kids of our generation. I think as far as just keeping it as relevant, I think if you're always chasing the times, like always trying to be cool and fit in with maybe essentially the cool generation, the youngest generation, the certain age, then you're getting into a hamster wheel, and you're always going to be running, you're always going to be chasing. But if you can stay true to who you are and continue to still put in efforts to reach the younger generation, but you might lose some in your popularity is going to kind of come and go, but you're going to always be able to stand around. I think of it like as a pair of Levi's. Levi's have been there forever, and sometimes they're the popular jeans, and sometimes they're not the popular jeans. But as it goes, there's the ebbs and flow, but they're always there, and so they're gonna kind of weather the times. And so I think as long as baseball can stay true to who they are and what they are, then I think you might come through a season of a generation where maybe it's not so popular, but as that generation gets older, the next generation comes up, and it's like, man, this generation kind of forgot about this, and this is really cool, and they're going to get really into it again. So I think that is a possibility.
Do you like having a human umpire and having that human error, or do you think the automated strike zone and electronically done could be a positive change if they go that route?
I think it could be a positive change. I do think it has to be done right, as far as just the logistics of it, the accuracy of it, and kind of where exactly it is, and that if they do it right. But I know there's more times than not that you get struck out on a pitch that in your heart of hearts, and even you go back and look at the video, and it's a ball, and it took it at bat away from you, or essentially it could have been an important time, or took a run away, or helped you lose a game, or something that you'll never get back. And not that the umpire did bad, he's trying his best, and I've never felt like they haven't, and they do a really remarkable job, all things considered. But that was wrong, and you go back to the dugout. Guess what? The coaches don't care. The front office doesn't care that the umpire miss the call. They just care that you didn't get your job done, and the fact that it was taken away from you and you had no control over it can be frustrating. So I think, and I think as kind of the analogy I always use, I think of guys who used to probably got a ton of base hits taken away with plays at first base, and then once they got the replays, guys like Hunter Pence, that he said there were so many balls that he knew he beat out that he got called out on, and there was nothing they could do. And as they now get overturned to being hits, like there's, how many more hits could Hunter Pence have had in his career had they had the video replay? And I think as it comes into it, you're just going to get a more true sense of what the strike zone is and what it should be, and kind of take out some of that human error. And I think the biggest argument people have is just kind of the purest argument. But, if you look at the history of the game and go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, they probably played and they just had their self-calling it, and they used to get into fights and stuff because, one side was, not being fair, so they finally said, hey, let's get somebody else that's not, biased in any way. Had they had, an electronic option, I think they would have completely used that rather than a person, but they didn't have that available at the time. So even if you would have went back and asked a player in 1910, they would have probably chose to have an electronic strike zone had that been an option. So,
Are there any unwritten rules that you didn't realize you broke, and then someone came up to you and made it an issue?
Not really. I do remember there was one time. It's kind of funny now that we're with the Rockies, and Nolan Arenado. He's just a great guy and talks to everybody and talks when he gets a chance. There was a moment where he got a double, and they scored a run, and I'm just over holding him on to make sure he doesn't try and steal or get too big of a lead and be able to score. And he's talking to me, and so I just was responding to him. And then after that inning, Buster came up and said, like, hey, the guy just got a hit on us. It just looks bad if you're sitting there talking to him like you don't care or anything. And so at that point I made sure, like, if somebody ever got a hit and was on second base, like, I never would just nod my head or not engage in a conversation with them. So I guess I kind of broke that to a degree, but like I mentioned earlier, he's just a professional in the way he handles everything. So he handled it really well, and I learned from it, and it got better. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being on, coming and taking the time to call and be on the podcast. You've had some really cool insight, and I appreciate that as well. I've been watching your career probably for about 3 years now, with a mutual friend that knew some of your family, and so started watching. And it was neat to see, like you mentioned earlier, your wife's reaction to your first hit. But we're cheering for you. I know a number of people who are, and hopefully you get back to playing here real soon. And we get back to baseball. It's of course everything's shut down right now, but I think our country could use some sports, and specifically baseball. What's it going to be like? We missed opening day, which is always just an event, at least in America. Do you think that the opening day, whenever that comes, is going to be as electric and as exciting as it would have been back in March?
Man, I hope so. I think really the only thing we can kind of compare it to is, where baseball was stopped for an event, at least in my lifetime, was September 11th.
Yeah.
And I think once, I was only 11 years old at the time, but once baseball resumed play, maybe that carried a little bit more of an emotional event. But once baseball came back, it was a big event, and so I feel like it can be really something to kind of this country's facing some tough times. So I think once baseball gets started again, it's kind of like that. All right, let's put our boots back on and let's get back to going and getting to work. So hopefully it can still kind of be that like turning point event for our country to kind of keep moving forward.
Yeah, great. All right, well, we sure thank Kelby Tomlinson, infielder for the Colorado Rockies organization, getting into this year. Kelby, honestly, I do greatly appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today and share the information. And like I said, we're cheering for you and looking forward to baseball getting started again real soon.
Hey, thanks for having me, and yes, looking forward to getting back out there and getting to play again.
Thank you for listening to today's Sports Stove podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you rate and subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter at Sports Stove or find us on Facebook, the Sports Stove Podcast. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.